Alright, Tales from the Crypt 1972 horror review where we give our overall thoughts. I'm going to sum up this intro as quick as I can. Obviously this is based off of EC Horror Comics, Vault of Horror, Tales from the Crypt, and The Haunt of Fear from 1950 to 55. EC Horror Comics owned all three of those, including the villains, the Vault Keeper, the Crypt Keeper, and the Old Witch. Anyway, one of the producers got rights to basically some of the generic stories. They didn't do any of the monster stories in this 1972 British film. They didn't do any vampires in that. They kept it within the grounds of semi-reality. They gave them the vintage stories, the vintage ending, and if you've read any of the old horror comics from the 50s, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so I love the intro to this movie. They play like the Phantom of the Opera theme. They play the Phantom of the Opera theme. I'm JBM here with L-Mid, and while they show the credits, and it's going through a cemetery.
It starts off going through the cemetery, and then it shows the freaking Tales from the Crypt all in red, and it's going through, and it's showing all the vaults and all the freaking tombstones.
Of the catacombs.
And then we meet the cast, and what it is a freaking tour of the catacombs, and then what happens is our main cast of the five, fade off into a different catacomb part away from the tourist group.
And that's when they start the 5 tales for each person.
Yeah, that's where they meet.
And that's where we meet the Crypt Keeper, and he's not even a ghoul.
He's like, no, I got this. He's like a total monk. He's like a white monk with sandals.
He's not a ghoul. He's not half dead.
And you're like, what the
he's
hell?
not witty or clever like the 90s version. Okay, let me get this
it's
right
totally
off the
dull.
bat. If they would have combined the 90s ghoul with the wit and everything without like him dressing up as a cook or like a poker dealer every now and then, then they would have captured the Crypt Keeper perfect. Instead
he's so monotone and boring, and he's got sandals.
Anyway, and in between every story, they don't do any. It's just on to the next one. Oh, what about me? What about me?
Yeah,
anyway,
it's pretty embarrassing.
Anyway, so the first
dialogue, that is.
Anyway, the first story was based off the Vault of Fear, number 35. This is the cover of the Vault of Fear.
Or it's Christmas time, the lady kills her husband, and it's totally out of nowhere.
This is probably the best one, and it comes so quick. You think it's going to be 70s filler forever.
You think it's going to be boring filler forever until you lead up to something, but that happens right off the bat. And you're like, oh, this is tight, but then it's kind of whack, but it's pretty tight. Because then, it comes on the radio that, there's a different killer
They
out
don't
there
show the gore because it's like early 70s.
who's dressed in a Santa Claus suit. And then
the story's basically like...
He ends up killing her.
You know how Bob Clark, or the guy who came up with who directed Black Christmas, who gave the suggestion to John Carpenter, where he was like, oh, I'd make a insane asylum guy come out on Halloween night. Well, this is about a psychopath on the loose on Christmas Eve.
I haven't heard that one before.
And anyway, she gets axed for axing her husband,
It's a pretty good one, but it just goes pretty quick, though.
The blood that they use is like art paint.
Oh, it's hardcore, watercolor
from like
paint.
Eric Vierthaler's sculpting class.
Exactly.
And the second story, that's one of my favorite stories.
So then it just cuts back to the vault, or to the Crypt Keeper, and he's just like, and the guy's like, oh, well, what about me?
And this is one of the, oh yeah, so the guy who made this, who got the rights to Tales from the Crypt, was only able to do like generic stories. Like I was saying, he only got the rights to 2 stories from Tales from the Crypt, and the rest of them were from Vault of Fear and The Haunt of Fear, which were basically the same thing because they were all hosted by the Vault Keeper, the Old Witch, and the Crypt Keeper.
And it's the guy freaking leaving his family to go meet up with his mistress. And then it just ends up in them car crash, and it's a total dream that he has that he's deformed or some crap. Or that he's just
guy
dead.
abandons family, so generic.
Yeah, how many times have I heard that script?
If I had a dime for every guy who abandoned his offspring.
In a script? No,
this
in
world
real
would be
life.
full of bastard childs.
Oh, wow.
It is. L-Mid, what are you talking about?
Oh, wow. Don't talk to me about bastard childs.
God so loved the world, he gave us his bastard
Oh,
child.
wow.
I'm not even gonna start.
We can edit that out.
It ends up like. It ends up like.
What? It ends up his POV after he crashes of him coming home, and it's retarded.
They keep it like simple comic book style though. It could really like fit into a comic book, and they fit it into a British early 70s.
And then he
movie.
wakes up, and then it just cuts back
like
to the
that from the movie.
freaking Crypt Keeper, and his story's over with. And you're like, all right, that was pretty boring. There's a lot of filler.
And then this is the Haunt of Fear number 12 now.
Then it goes to the third story. And
This is the one with the featuring Peter Cushing from Star Wars and a bunch of the other Hammer horror films of the 70s and 60s and even late 50s. And this is where he plays the old guy, and the guy from across the street, the trust fund douchebag, wants to like kick him out.
It's like two rich douchebags the whole time smoking pipes and cigars.
And at one
drinking.
point he's like sipping tea, and he's like, heavens knows what his intentions are.
And that's like British talk for like, he might be a child molester.
And the ending of this one is vintage freaking Haunt of Fear, PC horror comic style. It's gory ending.
What?
I'm not going to give away the ending of it, but it's the heart package.
Alright, shut up. You said too much.
Cliche comic book style.
Pretty tight ending.
It's the most gore out of all of them.
Yeah, if you like watercolored blood, water paint color.
Then the fourth story. Oh, this is so gay. 3 Wishes, genie style. Like this doesn't.
What? Be careful what you
They
wish
did.
for.
I've read the first like 15 issues of the Haunt of Fear, and like they've done Egyptian curses and genie wishes and
It's all.
ancient relics.
It's just the same thing.
Over it, but you gotta love it because that's what you're there for.
That's what you're there for the same.
I mean, you
thing.
watch a Friday the 13th movie to watch Jason hack up a bunch of people. You watch a afternoon baseball game to see some home runs. I mean,
I guess so, but in variations.
I mean, you go to the sizzle because you want the steak. In the words of the Myers fan 25. And I know you're sitting there arrogant as hell, like thinking you're the best, but you are. You're the best at dissing, but you hold back. Alright, I'm getting off.
So back to the story.
Darnell, you hold back. I want the real Myers fan 25.
Her husband's dead. He dies.
And Eric, ever since he got dropped on his head at that Led Zeppelin concert, he's never been the same. He lost all his humor and his brain cells.
Thinks that his senior year.
Darnell mentioned to him, and he's like, "What are you talking about?" I think he even forgot it. That's how mental. He's gone mental, in the words of Wayne's World. I don't know what story I'm at now. We're going to
3 Wishes.
The Haunt of Fear. Oh, that's just so boring. Yeah, it's just that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, they got 3 wishes.
Hey, be careful what you wish for. Old moral story.
It's pretty tight though. No, the ending is pretty tight because he gets all hacked up, but he's still.
It could have been worse. But they based it off a Buddhist relic or whatever.
Some Chinese thing.
Then it goes back to the Crypt Keeper, boring as hell.
So he goes back to the Crypt Keeper and he's like, and your story. Pretty much that's the lines. It's just pretty boring.
I mean, the guy just showed up to collect a paycheck.
I mean, he's a monk and he's the Crypt Keeper. I mean, it's pretty boring. Insane.
He's just monotone and quiet and not creepy.
Freaking sandals.
Or charming or witty at all.
Who the hell wears sandals nowadays?
Yeah, except Nate Dunning at the state fair.
Except like one of your friends probably wears like socks and sandals. How embarrassing.
Man, next guy you see has sandals, you just go up to him and be like, "You got fucking balls."
Exactly.
It's just the funniest shit.
Say it to their face and be like, don't ever wear
sandals.
Be like, don't ever wear that shit again.
It's just like, what are you gonna do if you'd be the first to die in a horror movie?
I know. What are you gonna do? How are you gonna run away?
How are you gonna run away from
anything?
Leatherface? I know he's
Any
retarded.
crazy crap you go down and you're insane.
Leatherface is not retarded. He's misunderstood.
All right, next story. Next story's filler up the butt.
Oh, this is the worst. They saved the worst one for them all. For the last one. This is another Tales from the Crypt. Tales from the Crypt was so spiteful that they gave this producer like the 2 worst stories to do. I swear to God.
All right, so it
Blind
starts-
alleys. This is where the old general. This one's more funnier than. It's just funny.
The guy shows up at the blind place and he's taking care of like 50 blind guys.
It's
blind,
a former
it's a blind guy
military
home.
general, you know.
Yeah, we get it, you freaking idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's taking over an old blind folks home, and he's just like cutting off their power, you know, like jacking them and making them all, you know, just treating them all like crap.
He's a stuck-up.
He's like, you gotta turn off the power, and I turn off the heater at 7 o'clock because of the economy.
He's not taking care of the disabled properly.
And then they start ganging up on him, and you're like, yeah, 50 blind guys gang up on the gym.
And they treat it as filler.
Oh yeah, and it's just, you know, like the creepy effect of all of them not communicating, but they're communicating through their blindness.
Anyway. No, then they make him die. He gets killed by resin blades in the wall.
Yeah, they make him go through like the basement. They trap his dog, and then he goes through resin blades.
I don't know how many people are gonna get this, but he gets killed by resin blades.
I don't know if you know what resin is,
You
but
take
he goes.
a ball and you scrape it with a razor.
That's too
and
far.
it's a resin
I'm
blade.
telling what it is.
Anyway, the ending tells them. At the ending, the Crypt Keeper is just like,
And that's the end.
now go to hell.
Oh yeah, and then they're like, no, they're like, all right, we're leaving the 5 guests, and they go
He's
to
like,
the door,
I wasn't here to warn you. I'm here to freaking
tell you what you did
This is
to
the
get
Vault
here.
Keeper, not the Crypt Keeper, by the way. This is our.
It's like, I'm not telling
This is
you
our
how
avatar
you're
for
gonna
Creep
die.
Show,
I'm
man.
telling you how you already got here, and you died. And they're like,
Here we go,
they're going through the vault exit.
It's like a 70s fire.
And the line, and the guy's like, "What is this? How do we leave?" Oh, and it's like clouds, and he looks down, and he falls through, and it's a pit of fire, like it's hell.
And this was the prequel to the.
To the what, you douchebag?
I was stopping for Tales from the Crypt part.
Oh, for the suspense.
This is the Vault of Horror. We've already done a review on the Vault of Horror. Give us your comments. Suggest us some 70s horror movies to watch.
It's like hardcore 70s. of
Also,
him falling, like
you
special
can-
effects
you can
falling to
read-
the pit of hell.
Apparently, the EC horror comics are up for free domain now, so you could read them online.
And then
for
the other
download.
cast and characters are like, all right, I guess there's nowhere else to go, so they just go out and jump to the
Yeah,
pit
they
too.
get it.
It's like so retarded. Yeah, they get that it's retarded if they've seen it.
So you could read your EC horror
All right,
comics
check out our
online
other
for free.
reviews,
Check them
Check
out.
out our collections.